Welcome to the Crystal Zone podcast with Kyle Russell of crystalconcentrics.com. Our motto is Crystals for Life. You're in tune to the Crystal Zone podcast, and we're just taking a moment now to share a word from our partners, people who make this show possible and who might be able to help you in some way.
Hi, I'm Nina Manelson, and this is a message for you if you're a woman over 40 who has been on and off diets for at least 10 years. I'm a nutrition and body relationship therapist, and I help women feel truly at home in their body. I work with smart women who already have so much information about what they should or shouldn't do to care for themselves, but still feel like they're at war with their body and food. If this resonates with you, please visit ninamanelson.com. I have a free ebook for you, How to Be a Woman at Ease in Her Body.
I got my start in terms of becoming viral on TikTok with a series of videos that I did about citrine and how to identify real citrine from fake citrine. And it's come to a point where I really need to do what I did with Lemurians and commit my knowledge to a podcast and blog such that you can learn a whole lot in just 20 minutes or just however long it takes you to read the blog about one of the most treasured but also misunderstood types of quartz out there, and that is citrine. Now, I fell in love with citrine early in the game. I've been working with stones since the late 80s, and I only recently sold the last piece from a set of citrines, Brazilian citrines, that I bought in Tucson back in 1994. And in those days, that's really the only place anybody thought about citrine coming from. Now, since then, probably more in the past 10 years, we have seen what has become known as Congo citrine, and that the Congo is geologically and physically connected on the map with Zambia, and there are beautiful citrines coming out of Zambia as well, but people tend to call them all Congo citrines because there was a bit of a trend around the Congo citrine that focused a lot of attention exclusively on that name and location, even though some of the stones that were in question came from other places. Anyhow, the third type of citrine that has become known even more recently is that coming out of Madagascar. And I remember when that happened, the first pieces were coming very pale. And now we have much darker pieces coming from Madagascar, to the extent that I had to text one of my suppliers and say, "Are you sure this isn't African citrine? Because it's mighty light." And although Madagascar is a part of Africa in name, it is a big island off the southeastern tip of Africa. And now we know that there's dark citrine coming from there. And we also know that Congo and Zambia have produced some lighter citrine, and that Brazil, after decades of focusing pretty exclusively on the lighter material, is now sharing some darker material with the world. And so when I say darker, I mean approaching smoky. So it's called smoky citrine, but the difference between any citrine and a smoky quartz is that the smoky quartz is exclusively brown and brown tones. As soon as you get any presence of yellow in the crystal, then it becomes a citrine. So, apparently, the color that is unique to citrine is the result of what they call ferric impurities, excuse me. And ferrous refers to having something that is iron-based. And we normally see iron showing up as black, for example, with hematite or goethite. And when it's red, it shows up in, for example, the red-coated quartzes like the dragon quartz that I'm quite fond of. So it's unusual for that iron to show up as being yellow. And that, I think, is what makes natural citrine such a rarity and a thrill. The name of it, citrine, is based on the Latin word citrus. And it's interesting, all the fruits of a certain class are called citrus fruits. But it was originally referring to the citron tree. There is an actual fruit like a lemon that is called a citron. And later in Old French, it became citrine, or rather, the meaning was lemon-colored. Now, historically, in terms of the energetic meaning ascribed to citrine, it was called the merchant's stone and became, therefore, associated with wealth and prosperity, maybe because of its golden color, which, of course, resembles actual gold. Now, a casual review of the internet has it meaning a host of unrelated and sometimes contradictory things. But that's par for the course with the prevailing crystal lore. Everything becomes everything to all people. It's about ascension, it's about grounding, it's protective, it's refreshing. Basically, anything you could possibly want from a crystal, look online and you will find virtually every crystal offering all of those different qualities. And part of what makes me different, and I take a fair amount of time identifying these differences from the prevailing crystal lore, is that I push back against that echo chamber of and half information that is being disseminated far and wide by every book on crystals and every website on crystals. My inspiration is direct and independent, and it's hard for me to read any of those sources without turning away, literally. I just can't do it. I can't stomach it. There's no logic tying together people's crystal lore, and I'm very pleased that I've come up with a system, the 10 energy zone system, whereby all stones can be classified according to only 10 categories. And because of its golden color, one logical leap that I made was to associate the citrine with the solar plexus chakra, or as I call it, the self energy zone. And I have ascribed to it a very specific meaning, which does not apply to all or any of the other stones in the pantheon of crystals. And that is specifically that citrine is and represents the positive ego, the unsullied self. And it's about you getting in touch with that person that you were, and it's related to the person that you have become, but it is unencumbered by trauma and some of the twisting that tends to happen to ourselves over the course of time. So that's the meaning that I ascribe to citrine. It's just one of the self stones, and it's a very useful and important one. And I will mention that I consider pyrite to be sort of the shell or protector of citrine, or the true or positive ego. Now, on my card deck, my crystal meditation and affirmation card deck, I have also included an affirmation, which is, I am good as I am and will to be. Those are words to contemplate and to consider as an empowerment for you to not just take solace in your own previous pure self or even your own internal best self, but also to recognize the possibility that we can either restore or approximate an ideal selfhood. And so citrine has and carries that load for all of us to aspire to and connect with, etc. So I think it's very, very important as a stone in the pantheon of stones, but it's really, really important for people to start recognizing just how extensive the prevalence of false citrine is on the market. Basically, every single piece of jewelry, all the faceted citrine particularly, has been treated one way or another and is not natural. And I have had people very excited to find some natural citrine that I've had wire wrapped, because they know that the color is natural and that it has not been treated or altered. So that's the specialty that I have, although I've recently purchased some treated citrine to show people the difference. I've always carried the baked amethyst, which is the most prevalent and cheaply available form of fake citrine. Most stores and suppliers will sell it as citrine, even though they know full well that's not what it is. Now, there are some other treatments that are done, specifically irradiation, that can give citrine a different color. Specifically, I'm referring to ouro verde, or green gold, which is a variety of citrine that comes from Brazil and that has been irradiated. It's quite beautiful, but it's just not natural. Lemon quartz is another treatment of some kind. I don't know exactly what it is that they do to it. I understand that it's possible to also heat treat or irradiate smoky quartz and take it in a yellow direction. And the end result is quite obviously fake. It's like too yellow. It's like a sickly yellow, maybe the yellow of like a Corona beer, a super light beer, or urine that someone's peed out after drinking a bunch of beers. And I've had, just even this month, 2 major wholesalers swear to me that the fake citrine they were selling was in fact natural. But you'll notice it never comes in actual crystals. It's always cut. It's always polished. And the reason for that is that it started as some other color, and then through whatever treatments they put it through, it became yellow, and it also became cheaper and more available. And so there are lots of people out there who have figured out that the amethyst-shaped clusters that are yellow are in fact baked amethyst. But those people have not figured out that this funny colored stuff is not real. In fact, I went on Etsy a few months ago, and I tend to sort my views from the most expensive to the least expensive, because that shows me what's really, really out there and what really, really matters in terms of powerful and valuable stone. And image after image was these large clusters of oddly colored yellow quartz being sold as citrine, which it is not. So that is pretty frustrating to see the prevalence of that happening. And in one of the videos that I made in the past, I declared that citrine doesn't really come in clusters. And truthfully, I have not ever found any Brazilian or Madagascan citrine that does appear in a cluster. However, there is a famous trendy type of cluster. I actually made up a name for it. I call it geyser quartz, but it's called Kundalini quartz, and it has a bunch of smaller crystals stacked up in a sort of semi-starbursty explosive manner along the side of a larger crystal. Unlike the cactus quartz, where those side crystals are pointing straight out, the Kundalini citrine has those crystals pointing straight up. And some of those are actually so smoky that they really are smoky. They're not even smoky citrines. And recently, I actually was able to purchase some gnarly looking Nigerian smoky citrine clusters that really are needle clusters like you would see a clear quartz cluster, except that they are smoky citrine. So I guess I've been shown that in fact it is possible for it to show up as a cluster, not simply as a point. I was surprised recently to also find some celestials that were yellow and therefore citrine. And that was kind of a treat because I didn't know or hadn't seen citrine show up in that way. So in point of fact, citrine shows up naturally in an astonishing array, from single points to Kundalini points to actual clusters. And it also shows up in a variety of colors, from a very, very pale yellow to a rich, rich yellow to kind of a smoky yellow to a kind of dark orange, maybe a reddish orange, certainly rich and ochre. And all of those are legitimate colors for it to be found in. But most of what you will find out there, if you do not come to a reputable source or someone who is emotionally invested, as I am, in selling only the real thing and being very transparent about it, you run the risk of coming across largely treated material, whether through heat or irradiation, or it's possible even that they can dye it. I don't know what the magic is there, but clearly with the interest and demand in citrine, there, where there's a will or a dollar, there's a way, and people have found it. So I think that probably concludes what it is that I have to say about citrine. I hope you have questions. You can email me or make comments, and I'll be happy to share what other additional information I have about it. I will tell you that citrine can be very, very small, and it can also be very, very large. I have a piece that is about half again as big as one that I saw at a wholesale show recently being sold for $3,000. And I have what I think is a bigger and better piece of it, probably worth $5,000. I cannot speak to the valuations of all the faceted and treated material and the way there's something called Madeira citrine. When I lived in Brazil, there was something called Rio Grande do Sul citrine, which was also that dark orange color. And I don't know if that was also treated amethyst. I suspect that it was, because that was many, many years ago. And they've been treating stones for as long as stones have been on the market. So I don't profess to be an expert on all of the faceted material and everything that's shown up in the traditional jewelry market, but I certainly know my rough citrine, and there is actually a strange variety I call green citrine, which I do not believe was treated, but due to natural forces has a greenish hue, often with phantoms, and it's kind of a cool and mysterious cult stone if you can come across it. I don't think there's anything new coming out of the ground like that, but you never know. They do find new things from time to time. So thanks for listening and for reading if you're following up on the blog. The benefit of the blog is that you can see photos that brings what it is that I'm saying to life and sort of teaches you permanently what to look for and what not to look for in terms of your choice of getting something real or getting something that has been treated. When I explain the difference to people and I show the difference, they are always willing to pay more for the real thing, which is kind of cool. So thanks for listening, and I look forward to sharing more with you soon. Don't forget, I do have a book, Crystal Energy, now out. This is my first recorded podcast where I can actually say that. So you'll want to visit the site, crystalconcentrics.com, and have a look at our landing page. Check out the ebook and the print-on-demand options, and look forward to any comments that you might have for me. Thanks again. You're in tune to the Crystal Zone podcast, talking all about crystals for life, and you might wonder where would be a great place to buy crystals. Well, we have a warehouse and storefront, the Portal Crystal Gallery in Arlington Center, Massachusetts, and you can have a look at all our displayed items, and also, if there's something of interest, we have an extensive backstock. In any case, if you're more distant and you want to work by email and phone, we are happy to serve you through our quality custom crystal mail order service. A portion of our inventory is up at crystalconcentrics.com, but you should definitely email Kyle, K-Y-L-E, at crystalconcentrics.com with any questions. We can send you videos and show you all kinds of items which we have not yet had time to upload onto the site. Looking forward to hearing from you.